What I love about flash fiction is the primacy it gives to language. There's an American short story writer called Gary Lutz who has a collection out called Stories in the Worst Way, which I think is a little self-deprecating because they're very good. But what it is, it's like stories in a different way. With only 1,000 words to play with in a flash fiction piece, you may not have time for a beginning, a middle, and an end. You may not have room for a twist. So it's asking for a different type of narrative, one where language is what's the real driving force. Lutz himself, Jonathan Lethem, Don DeLillo, they're writers who have these sort of fantastic word explosions, these sort of detonations of surprising words brought together next to each other. In a novel, 75,000 words, it's really hard to sustain that. And even in a short story like Lutz, you still maybe have 2,000 to 3,000 words. You might not pick up the key touchstone word from earlier. That's even more likely in a novel. Whereas in a flash fiction piece, you've got 1,000 words, so you're far more likely for the reader to be able to recall a word from earlier that is a key touchstone to drive the piece or to fill in some strata to give it depth, because they've only got 1,000 words to remember. In addition, you've also got the sound of the words and the rhythms of the words. Now, of course, you have this in a novel or short story as well. But again, over 75,000 words of a novel, it's really hard to sustain that. And sometimes, even if they have a sort of brilliant little section where your breathing and the sounds of reading inside your head is made really rhythmic through the language and the writing, it's very unlikely to be throughout the whole course of the novel. Whereas again, in a flash fiction piece, again with 1,000 words, you can do it. You can really control the reader's pace and their breathing and the way the words are running through their head. Really, you can regiment that for them, and you can take them where you want. So again, flash fiction is a remarkable way of doing this. And still on the theme of language, you're not even, with 1,000 words, you don't even have to sort of be restricted in terms of full sentences and paragraphs and all the traditional ways of writing. For example, in the collection that I've got out on Kindle, I've got one story which is 100 one-word sentences. So that the narrative is built by literally a column of words, and the time and the movement flow through those words, through the progress of those words as you read them. I've got another one which is a remembered conversation by one of the lovers of a partnership that's broken up, and he or she is obviously distraught about that. And the way that we try and sort of recall whole conversations, hour-long conversations, of course we only ever get the highlights or the lowlights, and we play in these sorts of situations, and we play them over and over and over again, like a rap artist or a mix master, sort of scratching the same couple of beats over and over again. Well, I've got a story that does that with language, with words. I've got another one which is what's known as an anti-lipo. Now, a lipogram is a story that's deliberately written using the avoidance of certain letters. The most famous of these perhaps being a novel by a writer called George Perec, in which he wrote a whole novel without using a single letter E, which is quite ironic seeing there's four in his name. But anyway, an anti-lipo is the inverse of that, where you actually keep coming back to a feature over and over again. And in my case, it's the use of words. And I'll give you an example of that after. Just to say, some of the themes from this whole collection of 52 short stories are bingo callers, circus fire swallowers, shamans, shoes, identity theft, tarantulas, apple trees, hitmen and women who are married to one another, trendy theme restaurants, actresses, electroconvulsive therapy, kebab shops, prison regimens, Lego brick building, messy divorces, hangovers, reformed politicians, badge collectors, interrogations, wrinkles, talent shows, bloggers, charity auctions, child therapy, urban waste grounds, child soldiers, crazy golf, Greek myth, cyborg programming, bouncers, poison spouses, court jesters, celebrity lookalikes, postcode gangs, Indian temple dancers, and vultures. So you can see fairly diverse. Again, just as an example, the urban waste grounds is a story. It's like a landscape portrait. There's no character in that story. It's a story without character. It's like viewing a scene, and it's all about the words to describe, obviously not only the visual of what you see, but it imparts great emotion to it, even though there's no person ostensibly narrating the story feeling that emotion. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. This is the example of the Anti-Lipo I spoke about. This is called Sink or Swim. The skin and bones skinflint wasn't too skin to skin up, some heroin to skin pop, and enough drink for a skinful, a skinny dipping in a sinful sinkhole. Persistent sinking of some of his sink fund currency into the sump of his sunken and shrunken rectitude, his addictions now had him hooked, line and sinker. But he was far too sunk already to possess a sinking feeling or sink through the floor. 4 skinheads in their skin-tight stay press and inked skin art, who only ever went skin deep in their prejudices, in always looking to skin you alive with their oxblood boots and skin peelers. But he was able to duck into a skin bar and escape these snickering skin flaps by the skin of his teeth, leaving him with a skinny lip, skin abrasions and skin nicks. Some skinny malinky skank was flashing her skin flowers at him, and he felt his own skin flute tooting. He felt a rising urge to sink his sausage, but when he went to his skin-hugging pocket, only to find his sunken treasure hoard had sunk without trace. Sink the Bismarck sunk.